Well, this happened purely by chance.
Exactly.
I mean, I didn't plan it. Have you got 3 minutes?
Yeah, of course. I've got loads of time.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, this all
Since I'm
started...
being given the third degree.
This all started in a rather curious way, because I came to Birmingham nearly 20 years ago, and the city had asked me to come and advise them on generating arts and media type enterprise in the city. And I came and I got to know Birmingham and I wrote a report. But in the process, I stumbled across these buildings, the Custard Factory. And it's just acres of derelict industrial buildings, remarkably beautiful, I thought. A river running through it, Birmingham's only river. Marvellous blue brick 19th century railway arches. Extraordinary terracotta listed facades on this particular building, and so on and so forth. And I discovered it was for sale for the price of a 2-room flat in London.
Wow.
The whole thing. And I managed to get a bank loan. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do with it. I really didn't. And I bought it, or the bank bought it. And that summer, I used to come and sit here thinking, what the hell am I going to do with this lot? And I enjoyed it because I believe it's where the ley lines meet in the West Midlands, actually. And I used to sit here eating these sandwiches, trying to figure out an idea. And one afternoon, a group of what looked like Romanian peasants trooped in. And I said, who are you? And they said, we are actors. And I said, well, what do you mean? Well, it turned out they had just graduated and they were looking for a place free, or very, very cheap, to rehearse. And I said, well, well, maybe. Are you any good? And they said, we're terrific. And I said, prove it. And they said, all right. And the next night, in one of the upstairs rooms here, for me and my then girlfriend, they put on a performance, an attenuated version of Hamlet. They were fantastic. They were really, really good. And I said, this is all yours, you know. And they moved in. No, seriously, and incidentally, they call themselves, I forget what they call themselves now. Dave, can you remember? Somebody remember? Anyway, what? The Custard Factory Theatre Group or something. They went on to win all kinds of prizes and go to the Edinburgh Festival. However, they moved in, and within about 3 months, there were 100 other freeloaders in the buildings, you know. And they were marvellous. There were people coming out of the woodwork. There were, you know, artists and sculptors and computer people and T-shirt designers and all kinds of stuff like that. And what was remarkable was that many of them were meeting each other for the first time and discovering they lived across the road from each other. It's what you were saying just now. And the trouble was that as July turned into August, and August turned into September, and the leaves began to fall, and the rain began to fall, and they started complaining, saying, we're wet. What are you going to do about it? And I said, but it's free, you buggers. What do you expect for nothing? Anyway, the pressure grew, and in the end, we managed to get a bit of a grant, Bryn, to do the first bit, which is the white building on the other side of that lake. And we opened up, having sort of reconstructed it to some extent with quite a big subsidy from the government, as it was about 30% of the total cost. And it was a runaway success, and all of a sudden, we found, in a way, that we were riding a tiger. We didn't really know what had happened. Now, I thought that the success of the whole project was because of my design. So I went around talking to people, saying, well, why are you here? Why are you coming to the Custard Factory? Why is this so important? Because people had come from Manchester and places to live in Birmingham to be at the Custard Factory. And I thought they'd all say, it's because it's lovely, it's architecture, design. Not a single person said that. Every single person, in effect, said, we're here because of each other, because we want to be part of a working community. We want the intimacy, we want the fertility, we want the fun, we want the blurring between work and leisure and pleasure. We want to be in like one place like that. And that was what it was all about. And in a way, that sort of disappointing reaction, if you like, to me, in terms of my sort of brave hopes about my design talents, was the foundation of the whole principle on which we've run the place ever since, which is to try to generate a working community of small and medium-sized businesses with people who are sort of sympathetic to one another and pointing in the same direction, even though there are diverse activities. And it seems to have filled a vacuum, you know. And I believe in a way that we are in the process here, over the next few years, of in effect creating a small city within a city. That's my story. You're very patient listening, but I hope that explains, you know, some of the stuff that you've been looking at.
I agree, and I think it's very hard for government to invent.
Well, absolutely, the dead-handed bureaucracy.
But it can create space. Imagine if the council, and this is no disparagement of the council.
There are many councillors here, Mr. Vaizey.
To say, we'll create a creative quarter building.
Yeah.
There would have been all sorts of issues about who would get tenancies, and
Yep.
I'm sure there would have been all sorts of issues
Yep.
in terms of the specification,
Yep.
etc.
Yep.
Whereas this grew organically.
Yes.
As you say, there wasn't a plan. It was osmosis.
That's right. Yep. So really, one of the answers, or one of the difficulties of answering what Bryn was talking about, is how can you, as a government, kind of provoke, but not control, the kind of process which leads to the organic development of facilities like this, which are not only marvelous culturally, but also, from an economic point of view, create a lot of jobs. And I think there is no simple answer to that question, but I think it is an important question, and it's one that needs to be addressed until some kind of solution, or a series of solutions, are established.
Well, Benny, if you don't mind me interrupting, this was the point I was trying to put over, about the government looking at how diverse they could be with funding, and, you know, with events that are going to unravel in the near future. People are going to be looking to where opportunities, you know, can be gained. And this is a place where opportunities can be found and built upon.
Would you agree with that, Ammo?
My question to Ed was, you've come to Birmingham, welcome, and this is the youngest city in Europe. So we're concerned about, you know, the future of not necessarily us as, you know, creative people, but, you know, the future leaders. And I just wanted to get some, you know, some of your thoughts around what things you and the coalition government are putting into place, so the next wave of leaders, there's absolutely, you know, a sense of stability.
Well, I think just looking at my own sector, which is kind of culture and the creative industries, I think that I've got a very specific focus. The Arts Council runs a program called the Cultural Leadership Program, which I would actually like to expand, and I think there should be a gateway for young people. I'm not saying it should be one uniform program. In fact, it should be quite the opposite. But there should be a gateway for people working, particularly in culture, to say, you know, I want to take myself up to the next stage. And Creative and Cultural Skills supports that program as well. So you can start with, you know, apprenticeships paying a proper wage in cultural organisations, but then as you move up within a cultural organisation, having access to all the myriad of different opportunities that exist to take your training forward, and the ability to learn off others as well, I think is very important. But higher education and further education is very important as well. And as far as the creative industries are concerned, we've commissioned a review, for example, into the skills available for people who work in the video games industry. So it's very important, again, that employers and people who are actually at the cutting edge, because the great thing about the creative industries in particular is it's a very, very fast-moving sector, and people who are working in that sector are constantly innovating and changing the way they do things. So it's very important, I think, that there's very close links between education and business.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, to churn out, you know, people who can simply be, you know, employed to do the work, as it were, but to make sure that what people are learning at university or at college is absolutely relevant to what is actually happening in the creative industries.
I agree.
Sure. So are you saying that you're going to put some money aside for the cultural leadership program for young people?
Yeah, well, the Cultural Leadership Programme has some money from the Arts Council as well, and I'm already bringing on board other bodies who I think are also going to support that. So I'm hoping that we will be able to expand it. But I do think it's important that I mean, I would say this, wouldn't I? But not every conversation should come back to, is the government going to pay for this? You know, we're talking about the creative industries, we're talking about culture, we're talking about innovation, we're talking about imaginative, resourceful people. And I do find it absolutely bizarre that the entire conversation that I'm engaged in at the moment is about government funding. And no one, I haven't had a single, people coming up with creative and interesting approaches and new ideas about how to do things. You know, we live in a digital age where the internet is changing things, where arts organisations have now this massive ability to network, engage with new audiences, and have a global reach. And coming here, where you've got effectively an entrepreneur creating a space for hundreds and thousands of other entrepreneurs, is a very inspiring place to visit, because this is a complex and sophisticated environment, and it's not just about government writing a check. Not every problem, I'm afraid, is going to be solved by government simply writing a check. And if I'm absolutely brutally frank with you, I think sometimes government creates problems when it writes checks. It creates initiatives, it creates bodies that then become very inward-looking, become, I think, complacent, become concerned about where they're getting their next grant check for. They end up lobbying government for more money to keep themselves going. And actually, you need fluidity, you need change in order to innovate and make a difference.
No, I thank you for that. And I have to say that Mr. Vaizey says he's absolutely determined to risk walking across one of our glass bridges. And if he's going to have time to do it, we're going to have to sort of stop all this and thank Mr. Vaizey, if I may, for being here, and ask you to say very few kind words, but to wish us luck. Would you do that?
I wish you luck. I wish you luck with all my heart, but I suspect, having met you and some of your entrepreneurs, you're not going to need a lot of luck.
You're very kind. Thank you very much.